everybody. Sorry I've got my back to you, but I have to see what I'm doing here. So this is a short workshop about caring for Tracht. So once you have your Tracht, we've had lots of workshops about how to wear your Tracht, what Tracht to wear, where your Tracht comes from. I thought it might be useful for people to hear a few bits of information about how you take care of it once you have it. And I'm sure there are lots of people who have lots more information than I do about what you do in your own club. So I'll try to sit at an angle and feel free to tell me, if you have something to add, please chime in and add, okay? So I also have a handout which you'll get at the end, is on the stage with a lot of this information in it. So I'm mingling women and men information for both, since some of it works for both genders. And we have some specific information of things that Roger has done with his Tracht that might be useful for especially the guys on the Audis, but also Tracht and Mutter. So I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. So hats. Almost everybody should realize, and they don't, protect your hat from dust, sweat, and damage. Now obviously if you're wearing your hat and you sweat a lot, it's going to get sweaty. The problem is if it gets sweaty frequently and you're a heavy sweater, if you perspire a lot, the hat will shrink over time. So if your hat, like ours, costs about $250, you do not want to have to buy another one because your hat's shrunk. So one of the things you can do is A, keep wearing it until it dries. B, buy some kind of a hat form that keeps it in the same shape. And there's some resources at the end of the show that have information about where you could buy that if you want one. Or just protect the hat because it does shrink. It's just like any other kind of cloth. You also want to protect it from damage. This is particularly for the women's hats. If you wear a Miesbacher hat, you probably realize that the brim gets damaged very easily. It gets bent up in weird ways, gets like all kinds of strange things going on with it. So let's first start with cleaning it. If you can use a brush on your hat, a brush that's made specifically for hats. It's very soft bristled. It'll get off the lint and the dust and that kind of thing. Roger?
Right, yes, I'm here. What?
This is my Vanna White.
Woohoo! We think she's improved.
I have a hat brush. It's also a lederhosen brush. How many guys have brushes?
Oh.
This is actually a fingernail brush, but he uses on his hat and lederhosen.
But actually, more so on my hat, I just use a lint roller. But then you've got to tear off the piece and get into all the grooves. Okay? Or just blow it off and hit it on your gum spark. Not all of us have those.
We're not
doing gum sparks? Okay, forget that.
Okay, we're only one thing at a time.
All right.
Okay, so, and traveling. Now, where's my other Vanna White? Ruth? So my hat box is on the floor. I prefer to travel with my hat in a hat box because the Miesbacher hat does bend, and I've ruined several hats traveling to Germany.
Where you can easily buy another one.
Well, you can buy another one, but I don't want to spend $250 to do it. So in my hat box, I have, at the bottom, a form. I learned this after the last hat I ruined. I took it to a hat maker, and I said, can you steam it back into shape? And he did, but it wasn't it wasn't perfect because he didn't know the Miesbacher hat. So he said all hats should be stored upside down so that the brim stays up and needs to be supported by something. You can use newspaper, that's perfectly fine. Just crumple up newspaper in the hat box or any kind of box. Especially for the guys' hats, it's going to be deeper, right? So you need something underneath it. What I have is a styrofoam form that I bought at Joann's Craft Supply. And then I put ribbon around it so that the styrofoam wouldn't get on my hat. And you could, I think I have more than one in there because it needs to be deep enough so the crown doesn't hit the bottom of the hat box. But I also like that it's not too deep, because then what I can do for our, for our fake flowers, I put my hat in, I put this bubble wrap to protect the hat, I put my fake flowers in there, and then I have my feather in this little mailing tube. And there was a comment.
Buy your hat box.
They're a little bit harder now than they used to. I bought mine at Fred Meyer. Fred Meyer, it's a variety store here in the States. But you can buy them at various, like Joann's, if you have a Joann fabric, or any kind of a craft supply store. They usually will have hat boxes.
The thing is, you have to
TJ
make
Maxx.
sure that it's
A lot of the
Big
kind of
enough for your
stores where
hat
you can
to
buy
be
just a variety of stuff. You can't hit it all the time. It's hit or miss. You have to keep looking.
And
But
measure your hat before you go so you know how big it has to be.
yes, measure your hat, because the guys'
the
hats aren't
men's-
as big around, but they're deeper.
taller.
And the women's hats are flatter, but they're bigger, so you have to be aware of that. Sorry, I'm trying to talk there, but look at people. It's not working.
There you go. Yeah.
Maybe I should move this the other way.
Hold it. There you go.
You can just wear your hat, that's up to you.
So yes, the other thing is, when traveling, Roger likes to wear his hat. That works really well for the men. I think my hat is really obnoxious to wear when traveling because of the shape. You can't put your head back. Of course, he doesn't wear it when he's sitting in the chair, but
Make sure it's the last thing to go in the overhead. If you put it up there when you get on the plane, somebody's gonna smack it.
but also even getting on the plane, you know,
Yeah.
without a bun to hold it in place, my hat will fall off my head because my head is round. So, it's, you know, it's a little bit problematic. So
Yeah.
if I can't take a hat box, or I have too much luggage, I will put it in a plastic carry bag, but only for the amount of time it takes me to get on the plane. Then I want it flat, because otherwise the brim is going to be ruined.
But the men get a lot of compliments from the flight attendants when you
Yeah,
wear your
Roger
hat.
likes to wear his hat because he gets lots of comments and compliments from people. So, okay, anything else anybody like to say about hats, hat storage, hat travel?
Yeah.
Hans?
Just one thing, when you get your hat, if it's rabbit hair, you have to brush it only in one direction. You have to find out which it is. It'll be harder in one direction, softer in another. And you have to make sure that you brush it in the right direction. It's always the same direction.
I'm not sure I know.
So if your hat is
hair-
rabbit hair, you have to make sure
Rabbit
you
hair.
only brush it in one direction.
That
And
piece
you
of
have,
rabbit hair.
it's not necessarily the same direction on every hat. You have to figure out which is the right direction and only brush it in that direction.
No, this is how.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay. So hat ornaments, we move on to feathers. Obviously, do not handle your feather. Do not, like everybody who ever sees your feather wants to do, run your hands along it and brush it, because that will damage the feather. Also, it's good if you can store it in a cardboard tube. Do not store it in plastic. It will disintegrate the feather. Store it so it has air circulation around it, and a cardboard tube, like this mailing tube that I have, or even just an empty paper towel roller, is perfectly fine. But you want air circulation, you don't want it in plastic. It will really fall apart. If it should, you avoid at all costs having to clean it. But if you need to clean it, you can very gently swish it through mildly soapy water. Mildly soapy, like something very gentle like woolite, a few drops in some water. Swish it through there, and you're not wringing it, you're not touching it, you're just swishing it through the water. And then you want it to air dry. If it looks kind of like matted up, you can fluff it a little bit with the hair dryer, but only on cold, and only just enough to barely fluff it. You don't want to dry it with that. It needs to air dry. Same sort of thing with Gamsbärte. If you do not want to have to handle it at all, if you can avoid it. Preferably, this is what I've been told by various people, do not store it on the hat, because the side that's next to the hat will get flat. And you want it to be perfectly shaped in all directions. So preferably you have a little stand. There are some made for that purpose. I think even from Earthslate you can buy a little wooden stand so that you can stand your Gamsbart up in the stand and it will make a nice little shape. If that's not feasible for you in the short term, at one of the Gauverband they said you can put your Gamsbart upside down in a paper box, like a shoe box or something. Cut a hole in the top of the box, put a support across there, like a clothespin or something like that. Just at the base of the gums part without the holder, just the gums part itself. And let it rest down. Make sure, of course, that the gums part doesn't touch the bottom of the box.
It's an oatmeal box.
An oatmeal
Yeah,
box?
oatmeal tubes. You know, like the Quaker Oats,
Yeah.
with the black.
It depends on the shape, how big your gum part is, but yeah, it could definitely work in an oatmeal box or something like that as well. If you have a longer gum part that needs more space than a shoebox would have.
You want a lot of space.
And yes, store it in a dark place. Sunshine will destroy your gum part. Especially do not leave it in your car. Never leave your hat in your car with or without any hat ornament on it, because it's very damaging to have that heat.
Oh, the heat.
The heat,
It might
yes.
get stolen too.
It will get stolen as well. We've had that happen as well. But so any other hat comments, hat ornaments?
Don't let it get wet.
Don't let it get wet. Yes.
Even under an umbrella, this is what happened this morning.
Oh, yeah.
But this was already damaged from an Oktoberfest here where we had a lot of rain.
So as much as possible, protect it from the rain. But even under an umbrella, it might misshape
Yeah.
a gum
But
spot
if it
from
gets
the moisture in
misshaped,
the air.
you can steam it, supposedly. Chris told me about this, and then you comb it out. But you got to be careful because this will pull
So you can
parts
hold
of
it upside down over steam and let it sort of,
wide
just a little bit, not very long. And
What
then
do they
use
call
like
it?
a,
It's a cake cutter.
cake cutter.
It's a pro pit. It's called a cake cutter.
anyway, a very, very wide tooth comb to very gently separate the hairs. But you're not combing it like you would your hair. You're just gently separating the hairs out.
So for the women's hats, my hat got drenched in a deluge at a performance. And so immediately I took my feather off and put dry paper towels on my dashboard of my car and then laid the feather on it so that it could dry because we still had to finish the performance. And laid the hat on the back seat so that it would be on a flat surface. But Jenna Moak, or Prine, however she goes, suggested that I take a stocking and the glass beads that we all put in our flowers, in our vases, and fill the stocking with the glass beads, and yeah, clean ones by the way, and put it around the rim when I got home so that it weighted the rim down, and then I set the hat on I used a sheet cake pan because I wanted it to be, have space around it and be flat, and it's about 98% of perfect.
Okay, so Anna Marie was saying for the woman's hat, she got hers absolutely drenched in a downpour. And so to try to survive,
Reshape the brim.
reshape it, she took the feather off, of course, and immediately let it sit on paper towel so it would dry out by itself. But then the hat, because they were at a performance, she put on in the car on the seat. It wasn't hot, I hope.
No,
But
it's
anyway,
freezing now.
on the seat. But when she got home, then she put the hat on like a flat surface, a cake pan, or sheet pan or something. And you can fill like a woman's nylon stocking or a regular sock, I suppose, with,
You want it to be long enough to make a even loop around
yeah,
the
with
rim.
those kinds of little
Glass beads.
glass rocks that they use in flower ornaments, flower vases, especially with the fake flowers, as a weight. So you fill it up in the sock or whatever and lay it around the rim of the hat so that it's evenly weighted all the way around so it'll flatten out again.
And you can get airflow through that.
And there's airflow because they're individual rocks, not a solid thing.
How many people have their hat taken or stolen or disappeared?
Roger's asking how many people have had their hats
We had
stolen.
one taken right over
Or
here.
taken
It went
and
out
got
the
it
back
back,
door. But we found it. Our guys went out and got
Anyway.
it for one of the women's
That's off the
hats. So you
subject.
got to keep an eye on them, make sure you got security.
All right, let's move on to jewelry.
Oktoberfest, I think, gets fair.
So you may realize that silver jewelry will blacken because it's exposed to air.
I'm looking for it.
If you do like that look, if you like your jewelry black, fine. All fine for you if you want your jewelry black. But if you don't, if you like your jewelry to remain silver, keep it from the air. So that means put it in foil, not foil, plastic wrap or plastic bags, or there are jeweler's bags Gosh, where did my stuff go? All right, I have here somewhere a small bag that's made out of special cloth to keep silver from tarnishing. And you can get it often at a jeweler's, or you can buy it online, of course. You can buy it as sheets, just strips, or you can buy it as small bags. And I store all of my stuff that I can. I don't have bags for everything. I store the things I most want to stay silver, like my choker and my earrings here, in those bags. And if I don't have those bags, I use a small plastic bag. You can use a Ziploc, but those are too big for me, so I buy special tiny ones. But anyway, for all my other jewelry, so that the air doesn't get to it. Now, if you have pins you want to leave on something, like the men often leave the pins on their coats, you can use a plastic wrap of some kind, like Glad wrap or Handy wrap or that kind of thing, and just wrap it around it while it's being stored, and then take it off, of course, before you wear it. But if you want your pins to stay silver. If you want them to be black, that's up to you. Yes?
How long does it take for them to turn black?
It's not like it's going to happen right away, but if you leave it,
Depends on the
say,
humidity in the area too.
a couple of months, it depends on the humidity, it depends on whatever. So it could happen in a month, it could happen in 6 months, depending on where you are. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not like you have to like take it out and go, oh my gosh, 15 minutes, put the plastic on. But, you know, it takes some time, but it does depend on the humidity in your area before, you know, in order to figure out how long that's going to be.
Yeah, Kathy's good at cleaning jewelry, so I just give mine to her when it gets ugly, so. Cleanness.
I highly recommend storing jewelry in some kind of a case if you can. I know my husband is not big on that, but I like protecting my jewelry by putting it in something. Now, I don't carry a hard-sided anything with me when I travel because it's not convenient to pack. So I just have a bag like this. It's a cloth bag, and it's full of the stuff I'm not currently wearing. So these are my little jewelry bags for the things that I am wearing, and then plastic bags for the other things that I'm not currently wearing. And for some things that don't fit in a bag, I have the jeweler's cloth, which is just wrapped around the item. So in this case, it's a hair barrette, won't fit in the bag. I just wrap the cloth around it. You can, if it's silver jewelry, you can get jewelry cleaner. Read the directions. Jewelry cleaner, silver cleaner in particular, mostly it's like a dip kind of thing. 10 seconds, no more. You don't want all your silver to dissipate off of the item. So you want to pay attention to the directions on it. If you have something that looks silver, but you're not sure it is silver, if it's like base metal, but it's a silver color, do not use silver cleaner. It will take the polish right off of it. It will turn black. So if you're not sure that what you have is silver, you can use a mild, like a detergent, like dishwashing soap, just a couple drops in water, and like a really soft toothbrush, and kind of brush over it, and then rinse all of that off really well, and make sure it gets really dry. Don't put it away. Make sure it gets dried off with a towel and sits out until you're positive it's completely dry.
Kathy?
Yes.
You can, if it's sterling silver, you can use white toothpaste
Yes.
on sterling silver to clean it also.
Right. White toothpaste can also be used on sterling silver to clean it
Nothing
with a soft brush.
green mouthwash or anything in it. It has to be the white.
Yeah, not the like with soap or other things. It has to be
Original
plain white
Colgate.
toothpaste. Sorry?
Original Colgate is excellent.
Original Colgate is a recommendation.
What about Ipana?
I don't know.
What's the difference between sterling silver and silver?
The weight of
So there's various, somebody asked what's the difference between sterling silver and silver? There's different grades of silver. Most of the stuff you're going to buy from Germany is what they call sterling silver. It's stamped 925. That means it's sterling, and the stamp's going to be really, really tiny, of course, on anything, so lots of us can't read it. But it's going to be really tiny, 925. That's sterling silver. But a lot of the stuff that looks silver is silver plate. So it's some base metal underneath and then silver on top. And some of the stuff that's silver colored doesn't have any actual silver on it at all. is some sort of base metal that's no silver. So you just have to kind of know what it is, and if you're not sure that it's sterling or real silver, just don't use silver polish. Use some other method to clean it off. And if there's stones in your jewelry, whatever it is, if there's like red stones that look like garnets or some other kind of stones, you want to be ultra careful because a lot of those will discolor with the wrong kind of cleaning. So if in doubt, use the safest thing, which would be, just a few drops of some sort of dishwashing, not laundry stuff or hand soap, but dishwashing soap in some water with a very, very small brush, and just see if you can get it cleaned that way.
Hey, Kathy.
Yes?
I was going to say, if you don't know if it's silver or not, you can have a jeweler look at it. The jeweler can tell you.
Right. If you're not sure it's silver, you can have a jeweler look at it and they'll tell you whether it's silver or not. All right. This is especially for anybody who likes to wear pins. I personally have had my pins bend. How many people have bent pins trying to put something on? So, our idea is like, oh, safety pins, stick it through. But that doesn't work with a lot of our pins and a lot of our fabrics because they're too thick and the pin isn't strong enough. So you need to work it through, twist it as you're going. Instead of trying to just jam it straight through, slightly work it through the fabric so it's not hitting the threads in the fabric, it's hitting the holes between the threads. Otherwise, you're going to end up with pins, and as I've got, bent pins, and they often cannot be repaired. I have a little badge from Germany where the pin was not strong enough, and it bent the first time I wore it, and I asked if it could be replaced. Not possible. So be really careful with your pins. And women who wear chains, especially if you're wearing on the hard meter, coins will rub off the silver, wear and tear will rub off the silver. There are ways to re-silver that. I haven't actually tried it. I bought some stuff to do that, but I haven't tried it. So just realize you don't want to be yanking back and forth on your chains if you can help it. You want to be gentle with your chains even though you think they're strong. They will break, and they will have the silver rub off if you pull on them enough times. And any jewelry comments anywhere? Tips, tricks? Okay. Lights. Most of us probably already know this, but I threw it in because I'm trying to be thorough. So, everything should be kept white. Wash only with whites. Wash in hot water. If you don't like to wash and you don't like to iron, take it to the cleaners. If whites get...
It's my vote.
What?
That's my vote. Laundry service cleaners.
What? Vinegar. So she's saying vinegar will also have white near whites if they get a little yellow. Or you can buy bluing. Bluing is available at the store where you might buy laundry stuff. The only problem is you have to dilute it, or you blue your hands and you blue your laundry. You only want a tiny bit. Follow the directions for sure.
Yeah, I have found OxyClean is the best stuff ever. In Texas, we sweat a lot because we're dancing outside in 100-degree weather, which leaves lovely stains all over your clothes. If you boil, I use a big old huge stock pot, boil the water, put in about 3 scoops of OxyClean and soak it overnight, and everything turns pristine white.
Okay, OxyClean. Big recommendation for OxyClean.
And we do that.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, she was saying that if you want to whiten your whites, the best thing she's found is OxyClean. So you boil some water, so you have really, really hot water, and put about 3 scoops of OxyClean.
Depending on how much you're trying to
Depending on how much you're doing at once, but, and let it sit overnight, and it'll whiten up the whites. Now, I will, one caveat to that, because I personally have found I'm allergic to OxyClean, so if you happen to be allergic to anything, and you watch something like that, and then you get a weird rash, you're allergic to it, so stay away.
The other problem that you have is dryers will take off the sizing on your fabric. Don't leave your items in the dryer, because that sets your wrinkles and it removes the sizing, and you lose that sharpness to your cottons.
Say that again?
So don't put any whites in the dryer. because it will remove the sizing on the fabric, and you lose the crispness to the fabric, even though it may not appear any difference at the beginning, but you won't have that same crispness to the fabric as you started out with if you put it in the dryer.
So you just hang dry it?
Hang dry it. I have to admit I'm lazy and I've never done that because I like drying my stuff and having it done. But that means more work afterwards, and you're right, it's not as crisp.
I leave my whites in for 10 minutes at max, take them out while they're warm, and hang dry them, and I don't have to hardly iron anything.
So she puts hers in the dryer for 10 minutes at the highest heat, and then takes them out and lets them hang dry the rest of the way, and doesn't have to iron hardly at all. So, anything else? Whites? And ironing is a big deal with me. Iron your lace, iron your apron ties, iron your shirts. If you don't like to iron, become friends with the cleaner, because it's really important that you look professional, just like a German would. They don't wear sloppy stuff. They look sharp all the time.
Germans are.
They don't care if they match.
If you do what I do and do put your stuff in the dryer, make sure you use a really hot iron to iron it, and steam will help, especially with the crocheted lace, to get it nice. I've had people tell me they iron all their stuff and it looks crappy afterwards, so make sure you're using a hot enough iron and steam. Yes?
Well, most of the men's shirts are made out of linen, and linen shrinks. You have to wash it hot to get it white again, to get the stains out. But it does shrink, and you know, most of us men, we have problems when you wear a shirt twice or three times, it doesn't fit around the collar anymore. So there's things you can do when you iron it, is to stretch it.
Right.
Is to stretch the collar. But the other thing is, if you don't wash it as hot, then the collar won't shrink as much either.
Right. It is true that if you wash cottons in hot water, they will shrink.
And the linens too.
And the linens as well. So one of the things to keep it wearable, especially for men who have a tighter collar, is to use that steam to help pull it out, stretch it slightly as you're ironing it, so that it gets bigger again.
It wrinkles real easy.
And I usually do all my things like tights and whatever in a lingerie bag, so they don't get wrapped around a bunch of other things in the wash.
I do my aprons in that too, that keeps the top.
The tie.
And aprons as well, it'll keep the ties from tangling up in a bunch of other things. Silks. I highly recommend you dry clean. I know you can wash a silk shawl, but it's going to ruin your fringe. It's going to unravel and be really fuzzy, not nice looking anymore. Done it, in there, combed it out, sucks. Don't do it. If you need to wash just part of your shawl, like the collar or something where it's gotten grime on it, you can do that easily, just that part. You know, make sure the fringe is protected, wrapped in a towel away from the rest of it. Do it by hand, a little bit in the sink, mild water. Don't brush it or anything, obviously. Use your hands to just sort of work the soap through there, and then rinse it out. And let just that part dry. You don't have to do the whole shawl if there's one spot, or just the neck. I also do my apron, my silk apron, I do in the washer, but on cool water in the lingerie bag, and then I let it hang to dry. But I haven't even put it in the dryer, it doesn't seem to be worse for wear. And of course, silk's no bleach of any kind. Should go without saying, but not everybody does laundry all the time, and we don't do things the way people used to, so just be careful to not bleach it. Yes, Senyopa. Yes, just.
On silks, if you do have to clean your fringe because it's gone bad over the years, it's getting nasty and stuff, on Facebook under the Gauverband, they had a solution which was 1/3 water, 1/3 fabric softener, and 1/3 hairspray, I believe it was. I have to go double check. And I mean, it took me 5 hours on the floor cleaning it all up and bringing it out and letting it lay flat and letting it dry, but the fringe got very nice again.
So apparently there's some kind of formula on the Gauverband website about how to clean your fringe. Or on Facebook or something. 1 part water, 1 part fabric softener, 1 part hairspray. So I still don't recommend it because I've done it and it doesn't look as nice ever again. But you know, you can dry clean it. It's not that expensive if you do it once in a while. All right, vests and jackets. Mostly a jacket, of course, you're gonna spot clean. The vest, you should pretty much dry clean it. That's the only thing I could say. You can spot clean a vest as well, especially the front, the wool part. The back is, if it's like most of our guys, if you sweat very much, it's going to get discolored. If the woman's always putting her hand there for the waltz, it's going to get discolored in that spot. So you can have a tailor replace the back, or if your Trachtmutter is a good seamstress, could replace the back, or you buy a new one. Those are your options. So, or wear it looking crappy. I suppose that's an option depending on your clothes. So the meters can't be washed. I don't recommend the soft meter even being washed or dry cleaned because we've had them fade completely from black to gray. Yeah, depending on when they were made and where. So really protect them by never wear it without a blouse. Never wear, and not a midriff blouse, a long blouse, so the whole thing is protected. If you do decide you're going to wash your soft meter, hang it to dry. Don't put it in the dryer or anything else.
Okay, I have a question. Can you re-dye your soft meter?
Sue?
Can you repeat the question, please?
The question was, can you re-dye your soft meter? Has anybody done that?
Yes, I know.
Sue, have you re-dyed your soft meter? How'd it work?
It freshens it up. It doesn't bring it back to its natural black, but it does freshen it up and clean it up. I did a cold water, lots of salt, black dye in a bucket, and I just kept stirring it for about 2 days. And then took it out.
Cold water, lots of salt, black dye, stir for 2 days. 2 days.
And then add the eye of newt.
And it still doesn't get it as black as it was. So protect your meters.
Well, I mean, it's in the sun.
Yeah,
Throw some money at it.
I know.
Well, one of the things you can do is if you've had a really sweaty day in your meter, you can tepid water, give it, God bless America, give it a good rinse in a tepid water and lay it flat on a towel, not the hard meter, these meters.
Yeah.
Lay it flat on a towel. Get the sweat and salt out before it's dry.
So she's saying, Anna Marie said if you get really sweaty in the soft meter, the stroke meter, you can rinse it in tepid water and lay it flat to dry, but to get the salt out of it from your sweat. But I would say as little as possible because it will take the dye out. And also if you're wearing a hard meter in particular, do not wear it and it's all sweaty and you put it in your closet in the dark. Make sure it gets a chance to air out with circulation where the air can dry that sweat. Or for most of us, if you're wearing a blouse, the sweat's mostly in the blouse, hopefully, and it's just dampness in the meter. All right, later hoses. Roger, this is where you shine. So obviously, there are later hoses that can be washed, but they do not encourage it because of the embroidery on ours. The embroidery will be ruined by washing it. So brush them.
Yeah, I would never.
Tuck
I
in
think
here.
some people have had their
This is my guy.
later hosen dry clean.
Leather clean.
Leather clean, but I wouldn't trust them unless somebody has had it done before because I don't trust them. I've never had my later hose. I shouldn't say that. I just stand them in the closet. They do fine. These are from 1999, Email. We bought them there. Never been washed. They don't smell, at least I can't tell it. The sticker I don't know, they're kind of equal hits on either side. But I use a dark washcloth, cold water. I don't know if it matters, cold or warm. Never tried it, warm. But you just stay away from the sticker and wipe the dust off. There are some later hosen though that some of our men have bought, and it doesn't matter what you do. So you got to be careful where you get your later hosen. They got to be, these come from Germany and a well-respected maker. But there's not much you can do about the sticker eye wearing out other than have it renewed, and that's probably not worth it. And then you brush it out once you rub that cloth across. It'll take the dust off, and then you brush it out.
So there's another thing that sometimes people ask, you know, my blade hoses are too big, I need to buy new ones. Well, Roger has a solution for that. So, but first Hans had a suggestion.
Hans? Wisdom.
Now, generally it's not a good idea to wash lederhosen, but sometimes you need to do it. But there's a way you can do it safely. And the way that they do it in Bavaria, I've had my handmade lederhosen washed, and it turned out really nice, is they use some product called Schmierseife. And you basically, when you wash it, you roll it in a towel. You roll it, unroll it, roll it, unroll it many times, and you take measurements of it before you wash it, because you have to stretch it again to the shape that it was before you washed it. That works, and there are several people in Bavaria who have a business washing lederhosen. There's also the type of leather that you have is very important. If you have cowhide, you cannot wash it under any circumstances because it will come hard. It's extremely thin, and it can't really be washed. The leather that can be washed is elk leather. And again, if you do the process, I have an article out on how it's done. If you look at the outside, there's one in there. And I went to a guy in Rosenheim who had a business doing that. And I had to do it because my wife poured a pitcher of beer in my pants. And there's no way. And so I said, I want to know if it can be done. And they turned out nice. Now they turn out, the reason you use Schmierseife, it doesn't remove any of the tannin that's in there, and the fish oil basically that's in there. That makes the hide into leather. If you get that out, it's going to decompose. So the Schmierseife does not remove those natural products. But it comes out a little bit dry. And what you can do is you can use mink oil on the inside of the pants, not on the outside, on the inside of the pants, and you turn it inside out and you gently rub it in. That's what I did. And it works really well. Now, a lot of the stitching has backing on it. In back of the stitching, there's backing, and that sometimes comes loose. And you can refasten that with something called rogan, which is, what's rogan? It's barley, or what is rogan? Rogan mehana. Rye, yeah. Rye. You use rye flour, mix it with warm water, and you use that to paste it back in. That's the way it's done originally. I did that myself too, and it worked out just fine. So be careful. Cowhide, Schweineleder, so pig leather, not so good. Elk leather, it can be done. I have friends who have elk leather, they throw it in the washing machine with baby shampoo. But I wouldn't recommend that.
Okay. Thank you. We have a quick thing here from Roger, and then we'll move on. I know where it is.
Yeah, rule of thumb though, I think on cowhide, which is the best sounding ones, I think is don't wash it. Don't clean it. Kathy wanted me to mention, I go up and down in weight, especially when I got a competition coming up. And I put an extra button over here. And this will work for a few inches, maybe an inch on either side or an inch and a half, to be able to rebutton these middle buttons and then trigger on the outside. Nice. And then this will grip it better. The other thing is just put a belt over it. But I would rather do this in addition to the belt as I lose weight, and then when I gain weight, I got some room to grow back into it, and I got to stop this up and down thing. But anyway, thanks for all your recommendations on lederhosen.
And of course, most of you guys already know, wear some kind of boxers under your lederhosen, or you're going to get chafed legs.
I don't agree.
Well, not everybody agrees, but that's my suggestion. We had some young boys start dancing with us, and they were just complaining up one side and down the other because their legs were raw from the lederhosen. So you can do what you want, but it's just a suggestion. Of course, Traeger, the leather ones can be conditioned with leather conditioning stuff. The Bergenfelser, the main thing is to keep them from getting worn by having stuff rub against them. You can use a sweater shaver if you have to, just for the worst of the pilling. And something to fasten them in the back so they don't slide off your shoulder. Skirts, dry clean recommended. Don't iron in the pleats. If you do need to iron, use wool and a little bit of steam. Hang to store. If they get totally soaked like mine did in Germany one time, it's going to take 4 days if you don't have any other way to clean it to let it dry out from both sides. 2 days for one side, turn it inside out, 2 days for the other side. Otherwise, you're ruining the wool. It'll mildew. I wash Roger's socks in a lingerie bag in the washer, but I hang to dry. If you wash them by hand, they're going to have too much water and they'll stretch. So if you do wash them by hand and you want to hang them to dry them roll them in a towel to get all the excess water out first before you hang them. And use garters to keep them from falling. So some kind of elastic straps can be pinned or sewed together underneath the fold of the sock so that they stay up.
Soccer tape works really, really well.
I've heard soccer tape works really, really well, according to Sue.
It's double-sided, and so you wrap it around the outside and fold it down, and you'll hold it through your leg.
It's double-sided, wrap it around the outside, fold the sock down, and it'll hold the sock. Shoes need to be polished, of course, allow to air dry, not in sunlight, clean it with a damp towel on the bottom or a drop or two of detergent. Avoid wearing your dance shoes out in wet places. Avoid wearing your dance shoes outside, period. Try to get some other shoes that are suitable to wear outdoors that are...
Get a shoe bag. Carry your shoes in it.
And Roger wanted me to point out, carry your shoes in a shoe bag. Don't just throw them in some random bag so that they're protected while you're carrying them around. And that's it, unless there are more questions. Any questions, comments, hints for anybody? Thank you very much for coming. There's a handout on the stage.